We're heading back to the Revelation, and we are in the 13th chapter right now, getting ready to get started in that. Normally I will give the timeline, but today I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the subject we need to talk about today. We got a lot. Matter of fact, to be honest with you, this time off that I've had, and I'm kind of locked at my house like everybody else is. So this has given me lots and lots of time to study on some of these subjects that I haven't had a real good chance to walk through. And so I've had a lot of hours to walk through this. And so my job today is to take all of this information that I have and to break it down into, when evangelist, he would come in, when he would pray, he would say, Lord, help me to break down the word into little bitty pieces that we'll be able to take it in and digest it. And I never forgot that. It's good prayer. And so that's what my job is, to make sure we break the word down, that I can explain to you exactly what this text is dealing with. Not going to be done today. This is probably one of the heaviest portions we're going to be talking about. And of course, the question everybody has is about the Antichrist and who he is, and a lot of questions regarding that. So we're in the 13th chapter. I'm going to read starting in verse number 1. If you would please take your Bibles. And by the way, we are going to be looking at two pages. We're going to be looking at pages 53 and also page 54. We're going to start out with page 54. We're going to go back and we're going to be dealing with the book of Daniel at length then. And again, we probably won't get it all done today, but in the next week or two, we should be able to get most of what I want to share with you, and what I feel is most biblical approach to understanding the Antichrist, because we have all these books and people out there, and they're naming names, and they're trying to figure out who he is. And the bottom line is, we're not going to know. Especially right now, who he is, but we are going to learn about his characteristics, and that's one of the keys. So Revelation 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. As upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was, I want you to notice this word, like. So he's using symbolism, obviously, here to represent a deeper truth. And this is where we're going to head back to Daniel and give this verse relevance and see what he's talking about within the text. So verse 2, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, again, symbolism of Satan, gave him his power. So this beast that comes up out of the sea, Satan, the dragon, is obviously involved in empowering him, and also giving him his seat and great authority. So now we can see this is a king. This is somebody in leadership position. Verse 3. I saw one of his heads. Remember, there were 7 by number. One of those kings or kingdoms, either way you want to look at it, were, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. So there's the death and a resurrection. And all the world wondered at the beast. They worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him? So obviously they can't see the dragon, Satan, but they're worshiping him through the one they can see, which is the Antichrist. By the way, that's the same thought of the Godhead. We worship the Father through the person of the Lord Jesus Christ and what he's done. He's our mediator. He is the one. And so verse 5, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things, and blasphemies. Power was given to him to continue 40 and 2 months. So you can see specifically 3.5 years. And that's why what we're dealing with, the key of the time period for the Antichrist to be ruling on the earth will be during the second half of the tribulation time period. Of course, it all begins as Satan is inside of him, empowering him, dwelling within this man. And he will be able to do signs and wonders. We'll see that in 2 Thessalonians 2. And he is going to be running the world for for 3.5 years. And in verse 6, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy, notice this, against God. So this Antichrist, his goal is to tear down the God of Scripture, the God of the Jews, the God of the other Christians that are here on this earth. And notice this, blaspheme his name. We're going to talk about name, the name of Christ in the Easter message as we heard that. And so his tabernacle, dwelling place, and them that dwell in heaven, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Highlight that also. We're going to see that back in the book of Daniel also, in regards to the one who was called the little horn. And one of his jobs as this Antichrist or little horn is to make war with the saints. And to overcome them, power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So you can see this is an international leader. He is known around the world, and they look to him as the king, as the leader. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. You remember earlier it says they're going to worship the dragon, Satan. They're also going to worship the Antichrist. Here again it's reiterated, whose names, now notice this, who's going to worship him? Whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. So here we see those that aren't saved will begin to worship Satan through the person of the Antichrist, and they will worship him because they are not saved, and they're looking to him for something. And you'll see at the latter part of this chapter is where we get into the mark of the beast, which is connecting all of this, that there is an image erected, and they're going to be bowing down and worshiping, just like in the day of Nebuchadnezzar. All the people, when they hear the worship music, they were to bow down to Nebuchadnezzar. And so as we know, the remnant, we'll talk about this probably in the next week or two, how they would not bow down, and neither will those at the tribulation time period. They will not bow down, and they will not worship the Antichrist. And so those who were lost, they're not written in the book of life, and sure enough, they are going to fall down. Verse 9, here's the plea as we hear many times by Jesus, and here it is again in verse 9, if any man have an ear, let him hear. Listen, the authority of the word, the predictions, as we've talked about, the records that God is establishing for us, but also for the future. Listen to what God is saying. Verse 10, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And what he's getting at in verse number 10 is justice. If you kill by the sword, it's going to come back on you. That will be the right thing. That is justice. If you are taking people captive, it's going to be happening to you. So God is going to be the one that's going to step in and bring this justice that needs to happen on the world. So we're on page number 54, and let me go through my notes, and we'll add a couple verses, of course, as we usually do. Page number 54 in our notes. So we're looking at the unholy trinity. So we'll explain that. The first one is the dragon. And he is the one who is over top of all. He's the one that pictures the Father. And then we have the second one, which will be the Antichrist. And this is a man literally going to be born, living human being on this earth. And then we have the third one, also a human being that's going to live on the earth, and he is the false prophet. So we have those three, the dragon, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. They are the ones that Satan is making up in order to mimic the real Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So they're going to have pretty much comparative positions in the unholy Trinity, and obviously the purpose of the false prophet is to put the attention on the Antichrist. The Antichrist's attention is to put the attention on to Satan, and so he will be worshipped, and they will be worshipped as a result. So that's the unholy trinity, and that's, again, comparable. You'll hear me say this 1,000 times, Satan has no imagination. All that he wants to be is like God. I will be like the Most High God. And so that's his goal, and everything that God is, in truth, Satan, who is a counterfeit, is going to mimic those exact things. And that's why many believe that the death and resurrection scene here is somehow tied together with the Antichrist in this king, that either he mimics a death and resurrection, or if nothing else, as we can see, these heads oftentimes represent the kingdoms, empires that were established, that this resurrected Roman Empire is going to be seen as a resurrection from the dead. So let's go page 54. In chapter 13, this chapter reveals the unholy trinity. Satan imitates God in every way, since he purposes to be God. Therefore, he will design a trinity of his own to receive glory from the power and abilities he gives them. The dragon in this text is, of course, Satan. The first beast which comes out of the sea is the Antichrist. And the beast which comes from the earth is the false prophet. You'll notice one comes from the sea, one comes from the earth, and we'll explain those as we go. Therefore, we see this, the unholy trinity, which are the Satan, the dragon, the Antichrist, the beast of the sea, the false prophet coming from the earth. The chapter spends time on the Antichrist and his power seat, that's the throne, and then, of course, his authority. So the first beast comes from out of the sea. The sea in Scriptures is symbolic of the Gentile world. Now, way back when you would read some, they would believe that the Antichrist would be a Jew, and yet this text would lean more towards him being an international man rather than just being a Jew. Now, some believe also, though, the false prophet that comes up, he could possibly be a Jew, and then, of course, some feel that it maybe that's going to be a pope. It's hard to tell from all of this, but nonetheless, today we're dealing with the anti, so I want to zero in on him. So he does seem to be a man who is international. Now, keep your finger here. We're going to come back here in just a moment. Look with me to 1 John in chapter 2 and verse number 18. So 1 John and chapter 2, verse number 18. To give a witness from more than just the Revelation and Daniel, there's another one in Matthew 24 that would reference a man who's going to be going into the temple, the third temple. Jesus alluded to that too. But here in 1 John 2:18, so you understand, we're not making this stuff up. It's over and over in the Scripture. He says, little children, it is the last time, and we're already in the last time. If you say, what does all of that mean? Go back to the beginning of this series in 2019. We spent weeks on understanding the last days or the last times, when they started, etc. You have to go back to the beginning. But knowing right now, we're already in the last days. And notice this, as you have heard that Antichrist shall come. Now, he doesn't deal with many, he's dealing with one. An Antichrist is going to be coming on the scene. Now, notice this, even now, are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. So we do know that the spirit of Antichrist is working already. We know that there are many who oppose and blaspheme God, blaspheme God's work, God's name, etc. But he says that there will be a day that there is going to be one man that God is predicting who is going to be the Antichrist. And it's not a group, it's not many. Although right now we see that there are many, and we could give you lists of those who would oppose God, etc., and those that pictured the Antichrist, whether you look at a Hitler or the list goes on with individuals that acted like the Antichrist will, but there's one that's going to be coming in the future. And I've taught this before. What's interesting is we don't know when the rapture is going to be, and the only one who does is God. So even the devil doesn't know when the rapture is going to be. So at any given time in history, Satan has to have somebody picked out ready to be the one who is going to be the Antichrist. So remember, this when that rapture happens, he's already an adult. He is in a place where maybe in the church might say, I wonder if that's going to be the one. but he's going to be there. He's going to be in place, and he's going to be handpicked by Satan himself and who this one is. And so when the rapture happens, and Satan knows what is going on, he will at that point then pick one, just like Judas Iscariot was a picked one, a chosen one, and Satan entered into his heart, and he went against the Christ, and that's going to happen again. So, point number 2 in our notes on page 54, the 7 heads and 10 horns are symbolic of 7 empires and 10 kings. Levy and others believe these are successive world empires, with Rome being the last one. And 10 kings, of course, that's the confederacy, and you'll see Revelation 17 mentioned there. So, there are several portions of Scripture that really need to be connected if we're going to understand the Antichrist, the beast. If you go over to 17, you're going to see there that there is a woman who rides this beast. And it almost comes across that the woman is the one in control. It's as though she's riding on and she's controlling this beast. But anything but the truth is seen in that, because the beast is the Antichrist, and he is obviously the one worshipped and controlling the world. And so what he is going to do in the first 3.5 years is Satan's going to use this woman known as Babylon, and he's going to use her to attack Christians and all of these things, and eventually she's going to be taken out. The Antichrist takes over the whole world, doesn't need her anymore, and so there's going to be a transition mid-trib, and we'll study that out in chapter 17. But this is one interesting thing to highlight. And again, pardon me, but I've been studying for hours. I've been locked in my house for hours, and I got all this stuff in my brain I want to share. But it's interesting, we have quite a bit of Scripture that deals with the Antichrist. 2 chapters, 17 and 18, of the whole Revelation, 17 and 18, are all designated for the woman. So this woman, who is in part of the first half, is really important in this whole eschatology. She's the one who represents the world religion, the ecumenical movement that is going to be controlling the religion of the world and taking falsehood and false teachings and attacks on true believers in the tribulation time period. So that's where we will be looking at what is leading up to this woman, this one world church that is really being spoken of a lot. We'll get into that in a little bit. Weeks, I guess, until we actually get there. So we have this man who comes on the scene. And then my last point number 3, is the appearance of the first beast is the same description that we will see in a little bit in Daniel 7. So the other portions of Scripture that we're going to tie together with this portion, we first highlighted chapter 17 of the Revelation, but we also are going to highlight chapters 2 and chapter 7 in the book of Daniel. And we're going to go there in just a couple of minutes. So this one man that's going to be coming on the scene was prophesied about in the book of Daniel, and multiple chapters actually. We're just going to zero in on those 2 chapters. And then we also see him riding this woman in chapter 17. So those are some of the scriptures that I would have you really study out and work them on your time. So this is what's really important. So that being said, what I want you to do is you're going to go back a page, and page number 53 now. And what I've given you on page number 53 is something, it's out of a book I purchased some time ago and gave really great abilities for a teacher to hand out to the class. And there's no copyrights on this, so I'm not breaking any copyright laws. And so here's a kind of a big picture of empires. And that's what we're going to talk about with our time remaining here today. So why were these empires important, and what were they up to? Well, you'll see every one of these empires had some type of an influence on the Jewish community, the nation. Matter of fact, if you go with the 7, you're going to go the whole way back to Egypt, and then you have the Assyrians that took over the northern tribes of Israel. And of course, we have Babylon that takes over the south and takes the temple, etc. So we have these empires. We have individuals, leaders that were heading this up and giving direction to these empires. So in Daniel 2, and then into chapter 7, there's more detail that's actually given then. God's going to begin giving us some of the prophecy that was going to be happening in the future. So we're going to head back to the book of Daniel. Again, we're going to chapter number 2. Now, as you're turning there, for some of you, you've already studied this out 100 times. You may have taught it in Sunday school or in a pulpit somewhere, and you have already laid this out, and you already know where I'm going and why I'm going here. But there are some that have no idea why I'm going here and what these chapters talk about. So I am going to be trying my very best to be as simple with my teaching here as I possibly can, so that we can all really start getting a grasp on history and what God was up to throughout history. And so that's the aim. Now, let me give a little bit of background with Daniel. In the first, you're in chapter 2, that's where you want to be. But in chapter 1, God tells us that Daniel, who is part of the time period where Babylon had taken over the southern tribes, so Israel is now in bondage. They are in captivity. And while they are there in Babylon, interestingly, Babylon holds the nation of Israel in captivity for 70 years. And of course, we have a future Babylon that's going to be coming on to the scene also. That's the name. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that in a little bit. So we have this time period where Israel, they don't have their worship center. They don't have the temple. It's not up and running. They are in captivity. They're in Babylon. So they're underneath this idolatrous empire. You remember, it's not just Babylon. It is literally, they're in control of their known world. Everybody is complying to them. And so these Jews have, no power. They have no authority at all. They're underneath this one. And so with that being said, it's interesting how God tells us that Daniel began to find favor in the leadership. And they started picking him out and saying, listen to this guy. This guy is different. The same thing with, as we know them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They had, of course, other names first. Haven't memorized those. But so these men are finding incredible favor. So the king would know of the three young men, but especially Daniel was the one that found favor. Matter of fact, he would present himself to the king. Remember, they were saying that, well, you need to eat this and this because you don't want to look skinny in front of the king. He's like, nope. I'm going to take care of my own food, and I'm not going to eat your food. And they went through that testing time period, and he looked good, and he was able to go into to the king. And so it was powerful to see. And then also, and that was in verse number 9. You can see it on your own. Verse 17, it tells us that Daniel had knowledge and skill, learning, and also is where he tells us that Daniel had the ability to interpret dreams. That's where we're going to. And that's where, of course, Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 2 does indeed have a dream. And he has no idea what it means. And so he's troubled. So he gets all of his astrologers, all the people that are supposed to know these things. And instead of saying, let me tell you what the dream is, and then you give me the interpretation, Nebuchadnezzar took it to the next level. He says, I'm not going to tell you what the dream. If you are really one who has the ability to interpret, you're going to even know what my dream was. Of course, the other guys were like, oh, there's no way we can do this. We can't do this. And he's saying, by the way, if you can't do this, you're dead. So a lot of pressure on these men who were the quote-unquote spiritual leaders for Babylon. And they couldn't do it. So guess who comes to their rescue? Daniel. So Daniel finds out about this, and in chapter 2, he does come, and he says to the king, give me some time. And sure enough, through the night, God gives him the dream and also the interpretation of this dream. It's interesting. I do want you to read 2:28 with me. This is where Daniel was talking to the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, what shall be in the, notice this phrase, there it is, the latter days. So we can see that this is something that is a futuristic. And this is really powerful. And thy dream and thy vision of thy head upon thy bed are these. So he now is going to start opening up what the dream is, and then he's going to be giving the interpretation. So the first thing he does is says, listen, don't, realize that there's a God who understands, and he's behind this dream. And then notice verse 30. As for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living. In other words, don't look at me as though this is me. We would say it this way, I'm a sinner saved by grace. I'm no different than anybody else that's alive. We're all sinners. We're all equal. So you can see the humility in Daniel in front of the king, because he doesn't want the king to see him. Daniel wanted the king to see God and what God was doing. But for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to be king, that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. In other words, what's going on? This guy was troubled. This is a burden on this king. I don't understand it. Tell me what it's all about. So he gives God glory by saying, it's not me. God's going to be doing this. And then starting in verse 36, we start seeing the interpretation. Now, in verses 31 to 35, the dream is revealed, showing the king, hey, I know what you dreamed. And I understand about the iron legs and the feet. I understand about this beast and all of these things that were there. So this is the interpretation. Verse 36. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings. Ring a bell? For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power and strength and glory. And by the way, God did raise up Babylon because Judah, the southern tribe, went into deep idolatry, and God had to bring justice. He had to judge that nation as a result, and he used Babylon. God raised Babylon to bring discipline to the Jews. And the same thing with Assyria, using them against the north. And so here, he is saying, listen, God's raised you up as a king. And by the way, I want to take my time. I won't be too big of a hurry. We understand that our president is raised up by God. Every saved or unsaved, God uses these nations for his glory. He's sovereign. He's over them all. So what we see going on around our world right now, Christians, we're not to live in fear. God is doing something here, and maybe showing some grace to this nation, our nation, because of humility that is happening. Sometimes God does need to humble us, and I think that's happening. We're not the ones in control. God is. And God, I really, never imagined a day when, we would have, as a president, again, one who talks of his faith and talks about God. And, I don't know him personally. I don't know everything, but I'm just saying that he's not ashamed to bring up this evidence. Weeks and weeks ago, he was hoping today would be the day that the ban would be lifted and we'd be having 400 people in the auditorium here. That's what his goal was. He wanted Easter, the resurrection day here, to be the day where we're coming together again. And he said this is very important to him. Sadly, it didn't happen. We are still where we're at. But nonetheless, we can just see this guy is thinking. So every man. So he's saying, you're raised up for a time of it like this. Verse number 38. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given thine hand, hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. So now we're starting to see the descriptions of a king and empire and what is used to symbolize them. So in this text, you can see the head of gold. If you go on to page 53, you're going to see in green at the very top that there are these statues, these images. And of course, the head here is of gold, fine gold. So point number one, top green, top left green, the golden head of the statue represents the kingdom of Babylon, which God gave King Nebuchadnezzar to rule. That's what we're reading about right there. So we're going to see more detail in chapter number 7 about all of this. Then, verse 39, after thee shall rise another kingdom. Now we can see really clearly that God's talking about kingdoms, these empires that came successively, one right after another. And after thee shall rise another kingdom, inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of, here it is, brass. So if you look at the next ones, you're going to see the silver would be the bear, and then the bronze would be, as we're going to see in a little bit, will be the leopard, which shall bear rule over all the earth. So again, these kingdoms. So verse 37 and 38 give the first one, which is Babylon. Verse 39 gives the second one, which is silver. The third one also is bronze, and then the fourth one. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. So you can see in your notes there, the blue now is legs of iron, and there's a fourth kingdom that's going to be coming up. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdue all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. So there are the first four that are mentioned in Daniel 2. So we can see they are the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the beast. And we're going to see that when we get into the 7th chapter in a little bit. Here they are named as gold, silver, bronze, and iron. You say, well, this is all really, really depressing. Yeah, it is, but there's good news also in the text. And that's where he starts getting into the detail of this next kingdom in just a moment. But first of all, verses 41 down to 43, he deals with the feet and then also the toes that are on these feet, the feet of this image that Nebuchadnezzar has seen. And so, as you see, whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part iron. Now notice this next phrase, the kingdom shall be divided. The last part of verse 43 says, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So there's two opposites, one strong and one is weak, and therefore they can't mingle together. They're not blended, etc. They're separated, and as it says, they are going to be divided. Verse 42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So the studies that I have gotten into with this is that these 10 toes would be the exact same way of saying what God says later on about the 10 horns. So the 10 horns will be the same as these 10 toes that are all part of this confederacy that's going to be merging one day in the future. I have yet to find any that I read on the subject that did not put those two together as the same. So that way, in that light, what I'll be able to do is zero in on the 10 horns that, as we are seeing, they are connected with the work that is happening. And so, yeah. Now, as you know, that confederacy that we're talking about, the 10 horns, 10 toes, there's different ideas about them, and we're going to see them at length later on. But as these are seen, there's one mindset that they are all located in Europe, and that is very possible. Some see it as east and west two different legs, one stronger than another, etc. And there's a lot of different ideas with it. I'm still studying some of this out. And some have it over in more in the Middle East are 5, and then Europe has 5. I have not come to a conclusion yet on some of this. I'm still studying this out. But there's not a lot of clarity. Some say east-west, and that could be, but I'm still studying. I'm learning with you. It's a good thing. We've got to keep learning. A tree has to keep growing. If a tree isn't growing, it's dying, right? So we want to always be growing and learning. So that's what we're trying to do. So most are seeing, though, that the 10 toes would be the same as the 10 horns that are mentioned actually later on in this book, and also. But here's the positive part, verse 44. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. Now notice this, which shall never be destroyed. So now we're dealing with something that is going to endure, obviously. These that were mentioned prior to this had a beginning, they had an end. They were destroyed, taken out. So King Cyrus takes over, with the Persians, they take over the Babylonians. And then, of course, we have Alexander the Great, the Greek Empire, that comes onto the scene. The leopard, as we're going to see, and he takes over. Now he's the world ruler, and we have a new kingdom. And then we got Rome. This comes onto the scene, and that's the empire that was existing under the time of Jesus Christ. So it's either the kingdoms that we're going to be dealing with. And then he's saying, but there's one to come that's going to have a beginning, but it's never going to be destroyed. Then middle of verse 44, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. In other words, we're not dealing with an empire that is dealt with the Gentiles, other people. As we would know, King Jesus in Jerusalem, the stone, as we're going to see, is the eternal kingdom that is going to be given to Jesus Christ and not to other people. The Jews will, when Jesus Christ comes back to establish the kingdom that will never, ever end, God tells us that the Jews will be the leader, light to the world during millennial reign and also for the future kingdom. So the left not of the people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So this one is going to happen, and of course we know Revelation 19 is when King Jesus comes down as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now notice verse 45. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain, which without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron. So you can see the iron, and the one that was prior to this is going to be literally broken up. The brass, the clay, the silver, the gold. The great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure, and that it absolutely is. It's interesting. 2 Thessalonians 2:8, it tells us that when Jesus comes, he's going to destroy the Antichrist with the brightness of his coming. The Antichrist will not have a chance, and that last Roman Empire will not have a chance to stand against King Jesus. Now, let's go over to chapter 7. We're going to start looking at some verses here. Daniel now has, in this chapter, the vision of 4 beasts. And you'll remember that the number 4 coincides with the 4 empires that we had just read about, and these ones that were going to be coming up. The gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron. Of course, we have the stone as Jesus Christ, but those 4 empires are now going to be elaborated on a little bit more. Not a little bit, but a lot more. In chapter 7, we're going to pick up in verse 3 to save a little bit of time. And 4 great beasts come up from, notice this, the sea, diverse one from another. Again, interestingly, the sea is mentioned, and we know that all of these empires are Gentile rulers. And so the sea, again, represents the nations, the international, the Gentiles. These are all part of what we see historically, okay? Now notice verse number 4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. The key is the lion when it comes to this first beast that comes on to the scene. As we continue in verse 4, and I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. You can see its destruction. It was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So this first beast, and you can see it in your notes at the very top, is a lion that would also be then the Babylonian empire. So number 1 would be gold, then also lion, and this is all about the kingdom that was with Babylon. And of course, you can see in your notes too, Babylon, it was from 605 to 539, and it goes from Nebuchadnezzar to Belshazzar. So you can see that in your notes. So that's number 1 kingdom. Number 2, verse number 5. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. And it raised up itself on one side. It had 3 ribs and a mouth between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise and devour much flesh. So we can see the second one, which is the bear, devoured then the first. And it was taken out. Verse number 6. Oh, by the way, you want to put, and you can see in your notes, that the second empire that's talked about, that is the bear, would be the Persian Empire, Medo-Persian Empire, as they took over the Babylonian Empire. Verse number 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads. Dominion was given to it. So now we have this third one. The leopard would be the next kingdom that we know historically came onto the scene, which would be the Greek Empire, and that was under, of course, Alexander the Great. So literally, that empire was prophesied about also. Interestingly, the only one at that point, when this was given, the only empire known was Babylon. So Babylon was told, by the way, the Persians are going to take you over. Oh, by the way, Persians, by the way, the Greeks are going to take you over. Oh, by the way, Greeks, Rome's going to take you over. And so these empires consistently, one right after another, had world domination. And that's what we see coming up in verse number 7. And this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a 4th beast. So now we got number 4, dreadful and terrible and strong exceeding. It had great iron teeth. It devoureth and brake in pieces and stamped the residue of the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. Now notice it. And it had 10 horns. And that's why the number 10 comes in here. And where before you were dealing with the toes. And many believe that that's where there's a connection between the two. And of course, when we get into Revelation 13 that we've already read, you remember that the 10 horns are mentioned there also. So that's where many give an interpretation. So this next empire, as we've already mentioned, would be a kingdom that was under Rome. And we can see, of course, even to the life of Christ, that's when this one was on the scene. And so we have this one as the iron, as far as the representation in chapter 2. And then we have him called here a beast that has come onto the scene. You can see that in verse 7, a 4th beast. And that's what he is seen as, simply a beast. And then he is going to be the one that's going to come in and divide and take over, and it's going to be, it was interesting. So if we look at it, to help you understand prophecy, this is where it can be confusing sometimes. We have what is immediate, which was Roman Empire that was going to be coming on the scene. Piece of cake, we got that. But we're going to see here, God is not just saying Rome is going to take over Greece. We also see something about Rome as very prophetic, because he tells us now that we're dealing with a person behind it all. And he's known as the little horn. So this Rome is going to be connected with one who is the little horn, that he is going to be, as we're going to see, he's the one that makes war with the saints, and he's the one that goes against. Well, guess who this little horn is? It's the Antichrist himself. So that's why the last empire, the last Gentile empire, will be a Roman Empire that is going to be under the Antichrist, a resurrected Roman Empire that comes out of all of the empires before it. This, as we're going to see in the Revelation, is the eighth one, and it comes out of the rest, and it is the notable one that is ultimately Satan's wheelhorse of empires to go after the Jews, to put them in captivity and to kill them, and this is exactly what's going to happen. Verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came among them another little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up. That's the empires that came and left upon the roots, up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man. And notice this, and a mouth speaking great things. Do you remember in Revelation, we see it a couple different times, but in chapter 13, it actually says the Antichrist will be the one that just speaks great things, but he's also going to speak blasphemous things against God and the temple, etc. Now, this is something you'll need to study on your own. I don't have time. I only got 2 minutes left. But in verses 9 and following, after God gives the bad, God always brings in the good. So this is where I want you to study out, because this is where we're going to begin, Lord willing, next week, is where we learn about the Ancient of Days. You have 3 guesses who the Ancient of Days is, and the first 2 don't count. It's obviously a prophecy about the Lord Jesus Christ, and that he is going to be coming, and he is going to slay this last beast, or the little horn that's going to rise up. And because that one was a temporary kingdom, and we're going to see that the kingdom that he's going to be bringing is an eternal kingdom. Yay! And that's what we're going to see. Then we're going to go back into the bad empire, and we're going to see the 4 beasts. We're going to see how we're to know the truth about the 4th beast, the Antichrist. The 10 horns are mentioned, and the war with the saints, and etc. All of this is prophetic, literally talking about the revelation and what's going to be happening in the second half of the tribulation. So let's recap. We have 4 beasts that are either in existence or going to come up. The first one is Babylon, in existence when this was written. But he is saying that there's going to be another empire that's going to come in, Medo-Persian. They're going to be taken out by the Greeks. The Greeks are going to be taken out by Rome. So here's the 4 that are mentioned, the 4 beasts, and they are seen as gold, silver, bronze, iron. They are also seen as lion, bear, leopard, beast. I got 1 minute. Go back to the Revelation. And the beast which I saw was like unto a, here it is, leopard, just like Daniel. And his feet were like the feet of a, here it is, bear. And then, of course, his mouth as the mouth of a lion. So these, what he's talking about here, are other kingdoms that were still all connected with Satan and what he is up to. And they were empires that God allowed to be on the earth. But ultimately, there was a mission that God had with all of these. And here prophetically, God is saying, I understand about all of these empires that came up in the past, but there's going to be another one that is going to rise up in the last days, and the little horn is going to be controlling it, and the Antichrist is going to be the one prophetically that is going to be coming on the scene, raised up by Satan. Satan's going to indwell this man. He's going to cause him to have great powers, and he is going to ultimately take over. And that's the scariest, pardon the pun, but scariest thing in the world is that one man will have that kind of power. That this one man is going to be controlling everything from government, church, worship that is, and then thirdly, the economy. And all of that is wrapped up in this one chapter. And we're going to see those are the 3 main things. if a nation or an empire has control of the military, that they can control the people, that they can control who is worshiped, the church state, and then we have, of course, if they can be in control of the money, we would call that a monopoly. And that's exactly what the Antichrist is going to have for 3.5 years, is monopoly, until the Ancient of Days comes onto the scene, until Jesus comes back as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, last thing on your notes, there's one thing that I do want to correct, and it's on page 53. On the right side, fourth one down, it talks about the divided kingdom. Many scholars believe this kingdom to be Rome. Rome occupied Jerusalem in 63 BC, and was still in power at the time of Jesus. And you can see that in the Gospel of Luke. You know, it's there and other places too, right on through to even the book of Acts. But anyways, so they say, well, it's almost like they're saying this already happened. My point is, yeah, it did happen in Rome, and I understand that, but I still think that there is a future Antichrist that is going to be associated with a kingdom that is going to be known as Rome, a resurrected empire, and we're going to put the word Rome beside that one. Let's pray, and we'll see you more, Lord willing, next week. Father, bless the reading of your word. Lord, I know this was a lot that we covered. And so, Lord, I pray that you will help the people as they study and they look back through this to be able to see the sense of these prophecies, as Daniel himself said, the last days, futuristic. And there is an understanding that we are already in the last days, and this is going to continue up through even through the tribulation. Help us, Lord, to see that you are trying to reveal to us what will be in the future. God, so with this in mind, help us to serve you with all of our heart. Help us to love you, Lord, and thank you for the time. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless. God bless.